YouTube, vinyl community, Carl Wilson fans, random people on the internet, hi, my name is Giggens. We're here today to talk about Carl Wilson's debut album, Carl Wilson, released through Caribou Records in 1981. Came out March 27th of 1981. It peaked at number 185 on the US Billboard Top 200. Good job, solo Carl. This album came to be for numerous reasons. Where do we start? So basically, Carl was fed up with the Beach Boys' lack of productivity, lack of expansion, lack of progression. By 1980, they had become the oldies act that he feared they might become someday, and he always feared that they'd have like a residency in Las Vegas where he knew that that's where bands go to die. And he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to see the Beach Boys go down that hill. And they were putting out new albums all throughout the 70s and 1980 with Keeping the Summer Alive. And he really wanted to keep up that momentum. He felt good about that album as like, there's some really high marks on this thing. We can do another one and do it better and just progress this thing further. He wanted to be that rock and roll star. And it's hard to do that in the Beach Boys because you've all got your part. So you can't stray from the part. Whereas if you're a four-piece rock and roll band, you can just do whatever the hell you want and figure it out together. When you got, a band full of other musicians on top of the normal Beach Boys all playing together to create one sound, there's only so much expression you can do and only so much out-of-the-box thinking you can do. So he got tired with the guys not wanting to rehearse, not wanting to change up the set list, not wanting to make this band go somewhere else. And the other guys, a couple of guys in the band, had the mentality of, well, everyone came here to hear 409 and Surfing USA and California Girls. We're giving them what they want. Who cares? They're coming to see the show and they're leaving happy. And Carl at the time even said, he was like, look, we can give them, quote, a turkey of a show, and they'd still walk away thinking it was the best thing they ever saw. And he felt he was cheating the audience and cheating himself. You have to remember, too, he'd been in the band his entire life. He started with the band when he was like 14 or 15 years old. He was a kid. Now here he was basically in his early 30s being like, I've done this my entire life. I need to do something different. And he knew that it wasn't going to happen with the Beach Boys. He was just fed up with them being super stubborn. So he was like, look, Dennis made a solo album with Caribou a couple years ago. I'm going to do my own solo contract. So we got that set up with James William Guercio. I can never pronounce his name. I'm sorry. And with the help of Jerry Schilling's wife, Jerry was his manager, Myrna, they wrote or co-wrote most of the songs on this album together. And recorded it throughout the end of 1980, and it came out in early 1981 in March. And about a month later, in April 81, that's when he stopped playing shows with the Beach Boys. He said, look, I'm not going to join this band. And I wrote down the exact quote. I want to make sure I read this correctly. I do not plan on touring with them until 1981 means as much to them as 1961. He's got a good point. He wanted that hunger and that energy to be there, and they were phoning it in for years. Their live shows, they weren't playing anything past like 1968. Once in a while, Lady Linda or I Write the Songs will make an appearance, but beyond that, it was all the old stuff, and he was just fed up with that. So he went out to do his own thing. He became a rock star on his own right. And I love Carl's 2 solo albums. I wish he did more. His voice lends itself so well to that 80s rock sound, ready for radio, ready for just being a part of the mentality of rock and roll music at that time. He blends with that so well. And then later in that year when Mike did his solo album, because he wanted to do something a little bit different too to see if it would work, it didn't have the same catch. Like at least Carl's album sold pretty well. Mike's album didn't do too well. And so, yeah, Carl ended up touring for this thing. He opened for the Doobie Brothers for a while. And he just didn't come back until May 1982. It took him a long time to come back. And in that time, he had played a couple of shows with them to see, like, kind of test the waters. And he still felt, no, it wasn't good. And so when he came back, he said, look, I'm cleaning up the ship here. He figured out which backup musicians were going to stay. At this point, Jeff Foskett and Adrian Baker were in the band. And he kept those guys, and he figured some things around. And he made the guys rehearse for a month or two to clean up their act, clean up the set, get something much more tight and interesting, and introduce songs to the set that are a complete staple now, but at the time had been forgotten about. He brought back I Can Hear Music and Dance, Dance, Dance. Cotton Fields came back. It's Okay, Good Timin', All Summer Long, which hadn't been played in years. So he really tried to reintroduce some new energy to the band. So they ended up playing oldies, if you will, but there was a different take to it and different selections of oldies. So he kind of got what he wanted when he came back. But the Beach Boys without him fell apart. They were an absolute mess on stage. The reviews of shows from this time are ghastly. Almost every reviewer for that 14 months he was gone mentions how bad the band sounded, how under-rehearsed or scratchy or just uninterested or bored they were, let alone all the fighting that was going on between the guys, between particularly Dennis and Mike. But you know, Brian was there, but he was sort of in his own world, kind of just chain smoking and bopping away at the piano. He felt like it. And Dennis would be there or not be there or show up late. The whole thing was falling apart, and they all realized how important Carl was. He was the glue that kept that band together. And without him, they really, really struggled. If you read anything about the Beach Boys live between that time, no one has positive things to say about these poor guys. Even at one point, Bruce was singing God Only Knows. And there was one point where he was singing it, and he was having a hard time with it, and he jokingly called for Carl to come out. And of course, Carl wasn't there, but he called for Carl to come out. And Brian would sing some of the songs, and his voice was shot. It's just, that was such a hard time for the Beach Boys. And even harder because Carl wasn't there. But when Carl was doing his shows live, he wouldn't play any Beach Boys songs beyond Long Promised Road. So a lot of people that went to see him wanted to hear some Beach Boys stuff, and they just got the album and Long Promised Road. So reviews of his live shows were a little bit mixed. People said it was a little bit awkward because he wasn't necessarily a frontman, and so he wasn't, like, for lack of a better term, interesting to watch, but he was just doing his thing and having fun and making some really great music. And I love this album. I love Youngblood. I really wish he made more records like this, but holy moly, I've been talking for a while. So this album opens up with Hold Me, which is an excellent ready for radio rock song. It's a duet between him and Myrna, Myrna, I think it's Myrna, how do you pronounce it? I can't read today. But I love the hi-hat shuffle on that thing, the soloing at the end. The whole optimistic feeling of this song is great, let alone a nice message to it, but it's such a nice introduction to Carl's solo world of being like, here I am, I'm ready to rock. Bright Lights has some good punchy drums, a really nice sing-along chorus, and excellent rock and harmonies. The thing that I love about Dennis's stuff and Carl's stuff is that they didn't sound like the Beach Boys. It sounded like them, just doing their own thing, whereas Mike's solo album sounds kind of like a Beach Boys-ish band. Carl's is just like straight-up rock and roll guy. But you know, he blends right into that feeling, that aesthetic. It's just totally him. You would never think he was a Beach Boy if someone didn't tell you that. So I love it. You know, it's a cool song about the old days and being young and crazy. What Are You Gonna Do About Me? The chorus rocks so smoothly on this song. Man, this is good. The way everyone sings so punctually and with such tenacity, and that the way they do it is so infectious. I like the drier production on that is really good too. It lends itself to be more of a garage rock feel. The track itself just drives itself so effortlessly. It's a real nice, simple rock song that's got some good breaks, and it's just a classic rocker. And then The Right Lane is a song about going your own speed, doing your own thing in life. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just be you. That's all that matters. Take your time. Do your thing. Life is not a race or a game. And I love how it just jams on for a while after that. Really cool song. Side 2 opens up with Hurry Love, and it's a really sweet ballad. You get that sweet, tender Carl voice that we know and love, the guy who sang God Only Knows and I Can Hear Music. Here's that voice again. But I love the acoustic guitars, the mixture of the percussion with the bass. It's real smooth, a really excellent, clean production on this one. Just a well-constructed pop song. Everyone on that song, well done. Then you get Heaven, which is just one of his probably his most famous solo song, and one he would do with the guys live for many, many years to come. It's an absolute classic. It's a song about devotion and being blown away that somebody in your life could make you feel the way you feel, and then have that feeling reciprocated, and that you both complement each other, and that you never thought you could feel that way about somebody. But the way that Carl sings it, it's like a message from the heavens, like the angels came down and said, well, here's one of the most beautiful songs you'll ever hear, and you're like, yep, damn straight it is. It's absolutely incredible. The amount of passion and pure romance in his voice, the endearing tone that he takes, everything about it is like a big warm blanket. It's perfect soft rock. You know, it's a good tearjerker song, if you will. Carl hitting those notes, especially on that line at the very end of the chorus, the way he goes really, really high, but it's also just a very comforting, smooth falsetto. He nails it. I just love that track, and I'm happy that they ended up playing it live too. They'd play a couple more of his songs live as well, but that one in particular, that's a good one. Then you get the Grammy, which you're back to the rock and roll here. It's a great pop rock song about trying to understand the algorithm of music and how things are successful. I mean, the lyrics are literally about being like, I've been here this whole time doing my thing. How come this song took off? Kind of like that. And it must have been particularly good for Carl to hear words like that, especially being in the Beach Boys, where like their concert draws were always pretty good, but their record sales were always like going down, down, down. So they weren't doing anything different, but they were still selling out concerts, and then once in a while they'd strike gold with like Come Go With Me or something like that at that time. So I bet that was a pretty nice touch for Carl to put that in here. And then Seems So Long Ago, we end with another slow ballad one. And the narrator, you know, Carl takes on the storyteller about watching kids at the park and thinking about when you were a kid and, you know, what kind of dreams you had and how life was like and thinking about your parents and all that kind of stuff. So a nice song, a good closer song. Not my favorite, but a good closer song. But yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, after that, Carl was gone for 14 months, and when he came back, he took control of the ship, and then, you know, 1982 was a decent year for them touring-wise. They had a lot of fun touring, which they hadn't had for a while, so their camaraderie was really, really strong at that point. But, you know, Mike shaved his beard off, so people were happy to see him look a lot younger. But, yeah, May 2nd, 1982, Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego was the first show where Carl was really, really back. So, and after that, he was there until he unfortunately passed away in the late 90s. But absolutely great album. And this price sticker won't come off. So it will come off, but it's going to take the... It's going to ruin the jacket. So now you all know I paid $10 for it. But the other sleeve has all the lyrics and who played on it, which is really cool. Carl plays cowbell. Yeah. Didn't see that one coming. But this copy is just absolutely gorgeous shape. I mean, it's like barely played. It's very, very shiny, very, very clean. I love those labels. Whoop. Those labels are just so rad. So yeah, I'm not sure if I prefer this or Youngblood. I like them both. You know, Youngblood has What You Do To Me. That's a great song. So, I don't know. I'm not going to pick one. I like them both. This one for me, easily 8 out of 10. No problem. You know, it's good pop rock stuff. Nothing mind-blowing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's good to hear him let loose and have fun and do something completely non-Beach Boys and completely of its time. You know, it was 1981. He wasn't singing Surfin' USA while he was recording this album. He was singing new stuff. And that must have been so exhilarating for him and so freeing to, you know, to shake that off for a while and just do something his own. And he looks so confident in the album cover, which I love that picture of him because he looks like I'm ready. Ready to take on what's coming next in my solo career and do things my way. And he did. So there you go. Carl Wilson's self-titled 1981 debut. Absolutely love this album. 8 out of 10. No problem. Let me know what you guys think about this thing in the comments below, and we'll talk about it down there. But until then, my name is Giggens. This has been Carl Wilson, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.